which nobody escapes that. I mean, no matter what your ID is and no matter what strengths we all have, there are invariably things that we don't like to do. And no matter how old we are, we probably have not always found ways to do those things that, you know, were challenging. Some of us have. I mean, there are times when we might have been struggling with something to do when we were, you know, in our 30s, and you get to, you know, some period later and you sort of go, you know, I found a new way to look at that or to get that done. And I don't mean by delegation, because there are people that will say things like, you know, well, I've got people around me to do those things. I get that. But there are also things that as a human, you just need to do. And I mean everything from making your bed or doing the washing up or, you know, tax returns. Like, there are just things you can't always delegate. Some of those things you maybe do delegate, but there are invariably things that we don't like doing. Confronting a conversation. There are people that say, I just hate it. I'll do anything I can to run from a conversation. And invariably they'll say things like, you know, had I learned to deal with that back when it was a small issue, maybe I could have saved my marriage. Maybe I'd still have a better relationship with my child. You know, there's sometimes it's not just that it would be nice if we could do the things we don't like to do. It's actually that there are significant life implications when we don't, for example, confront things when they're small instead of letting them fester and become some big issue. So today, that's what we're going to focus on, is what are some, I call them acupuncture points. What are some insights and strategies that they're like the one thing, if you do that thing, it'll help you address the areas that you typically have struggled to do. It might be to do with fitness, relationships, you know, areas of your leadership around accountability or the credibility that suffers from not being that accountable. There are some big ticket items here. And while we go through the first part of today, I just encourage all of you to just reflect on what is something that has been your nemesis, something that you have struggled to do for a long time. And I've just thrown in a few examples there before, but you might have something altogether different, and it might be something that's new. It might be something long-standing. But I'd like you to reflect on it, because I think the value today is not in me sharing the strategies, but it's more in hearing from you guys on your approach to some of these strategies and the nuances around them that will help others who are similarly minded to you. And some of those people may not even be on this call. Some of them might be your spouses and your children, and you'll get ideas from this on, so that's how you keep a teenager's bedroom tidy, you know, like whatever it might be that is on your mind to do with other people. So I think it's going to be a fun session. If we find it really engaging and we don't have enough time to get through everybody's issues today, we can of course back up in subsequent weeks and cover them off with you. Where I'd like to start today is where we always start, which is checking in around, you know, you being in stride, because that is the principal purpose of these webinars. They're a weekly opportunity to stop, hop off the treadmill and just reflect for a minute on, am I operating this week in stride with who I am? Am I giving the very best version of myself? And for those of you who are new to this call, I know there are some new people on today, we have a little model or a tool that we use called the Peak Performance Indicator. I'll present it up for you so you can see it. Let's go share. Where is it? So this slide here, which some of you have seen for all 50 weeks of our webinars, this is week 50. This green arrow represents you being in stride with your true self. We call that being true to your ID. Your ID is the natural you, the way you are born to be. And when you are true to those natural instincts, you get the things at the top of that chart. That's when you are your very best version of yourself. And it's not just about performance. It's also about your fulfillment, your energy, your health. And frankly, from a leadership point of view, the way you present yourself to others. When we have found a direct correlation between team performance and individual performance. So when you get a group of people showing up as their best selves, the team invariably performs better. When you are compromised or not showing up well, if you're stressed, for example, and collectively the team is stressed and off their game, the performance of the team and the shadow that you cast will be significantly compromised. So when we think about, you know, helping teams be the best teams they can be, it always starts by helping individuals be the best individuals they can be. And my question to you today is, for how the week's playing out and for all the distractions that might be pulling you off to the left here or off to the right, whether that's family issues or relationship issues or things to do with in your workplace, for example, for all of those distractions, where are you on the scale? Are you navigating them from a place of being in stride, or are you pulled off to, a compromised place? And when you are off track and, out of stride, as the cliche goes, then you not only miss out on the things at the top, but you start to experience the forms of stress and distress and ill health that occur there on that horizontal axis at the bottom. And it could be simple little things, like if you're just a bit off track, it might be swearing or, anger or lacking motivation, hitting the snooze button when you're trying to get up of a morning. Whereas when you're on your game, you're excited and you can't wait to get out there and, really get stuck into life. So where are you on that chart? Are you on, we often use the scoring of 0 to 10, like on a scale of 0 to 10, if someone is a 10 out of 10, they're really in stride and flying and feeling like, life can't get much better than this. And a 1 out of 10 is the person that doesn't really want to get out of bed of a morning and just feels like I'm just not who I am and I need to make some serious changes. So where are you on that scale? And you might want to put something in the chat there. Some of you probably already have in terms of the number that you are today. So you can see there are some high scores, 9s and 10s, but there are some of you who are a bit off your normal game, so you want to be in a place of 8s, 9s, or 10s. So if you're feeling a 7 or a 6, or it's fine and normal to feel like that and to have that experience. The key is to not stay there, to get to a place where you can be doing better. Does anyone want to talk to their score? Does anyone have anything they'd like to particularly share about either what's happened connected to their ID that's got them really in stride, or maybe what they can see is happening that's pulling them off their game?
I'll start.
Okay, Greg.
Yeah, I don't, this is a great example of the two things. The topic tonight is, this morning is, how do you do what you don't want to do? And I never liked ranking myself on this scale. There's a few of us that the town verifies and they go, yeah, so what? But I do like the idea of, there's something going on. Where am I? What do I need to do to fix it? What do we need to do about it? So when I'm in situations where I don't feel like what I need to do to be part of the group, I have to refocus myself into going, what's other people getting from this, and what's the gift that they're seeing that I'm not seeing, and what else can I do to be here but not compromise what I don't want to do, right? And so every morning, this is a great chance for me to practice. What do I do when I don't want to do? And because I see so many people who really get from it, and so I don't want to put a damper on it, but I thought, it's a great example. I can still be here. I don't have to compromise myself, and I can be supportive without having to lose anything. And there's a fine line between joining without giving up and being there, in 100%. And this is a great example of today's topic, and me being true to me and also fitting into the tribe. That's all.
Totally. And so you're saying that if you're approaching anything, whether it's this meeting or something else, and you can't see what's in it for me necessarily, how is it going to be useful for me? By switching your perspective to how can this be useful for others, it allows you to re-engage. So it's all around the usefulness piece of both what demotivates you.
Yeah, otherwise I got to go find something to do that's useful. So
Right.
what I become now is, how do I assist others in them getting value from this? So I'm now the coach of this, so to speak,
Right. Right.
And then I'm fully engaged now, and it's almost like the peak performance is almost not the topic now. The topic's now, how's everyone else doing? What can I do? And sometimes the best gift Greg can give is shut the hell up.
Okay, let's try that now then. No. All right. Anybody else have something they would like to share around their number? And to Greg's point, it doesn't have to be a number. It might just be, I'm high on the scale, or I'm low today. I'm off my game,
Hi, Greg. Sorry, Paul.
Go, Susan.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that yeah, I'm high today on the 9, and the reason is that I'm very excited, obviously, about my book, but I feel like I struck a nerve. But more importantly, I think it was because I'm aligned to what I know is true and right. So having to finally have that in a book and to express that has given me a really big boost, and to see that it's landed with people. So I think the idea of the knowing and following through on that has been the piece that's made it very exciting for me.
Well, and for a strong improviser, the excitement, you know, when you're doing something that's exciting, I mean, whether it's a person or a thing, and it can be the simplest thing, but if in your mind it's really exciting, and I mean, publishing a book is a huge deal. So many people feel like they've got a book inside them and never ever get it outside of them. You know, there's many people that have started it. They've got not even a manuscript, but some things written. But to get it to the point where it's actually a published product you can give to people and say, this is it, you know, it's a huge deal. Well done. That's very exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
I'd quite like to share, if I may.
Nice to hear from you, Catherine.
Thank you. And as a resistant completer, I loved your last words, because I've got a book coming up via Hay House in the next few weeks, and it has finally been finished.
Yep.
And it's on its way across the water, I guess. And I'm at the moment chasing to try to get all the information from them around timing and campaigns and things to get it sorted, get it out there. And I keep wandering away from it, of course, in search of something even more exciting now, because that's been done and I've just got to hang around waiting for them to finish their process, which is like, oh, come on, give me something else. The real challenge for me at the moment, I think, is letting go the professional speaking work that I've done for the last 33 years, just releasing it, allowing myself to throw away all my research materials and processes, and creating online programs, which requires me to do quite a lot of verifying and completing, and that's a challenge. And so I'm finding that each day I just wander around and go, I wonder what would be fun to do now. And I'm actually not really getting stuff done.
Yeah.
That has various impacts. So I'm reflecting, you know, as I listen to you on, and thank you always for this gift of Instinctive Drives. You know that you validated me enormously when we first met and I found my profile.
Well, thanks, Catherine. So for those who are asking, Catherine's ID is, I think from memory, it's 3429, Catherine, isn't it?
Correct. Yes.
So it raises a number of interesting points, because, you know, the excitement of having a book is, a lot of people are like, as a strong improviser, go, I'd love to have a book and have all that captured. But the process of writing the damn thing, and more importantly, finishing it, because you can often get started and you throw down those initial thoughts and you can come back in a moment of inspiration and put a bit more in. But then you get to a point where you've actually got to, at some point, just slog it out, you know, and get it done. And so getting it done, and particularly when you're a two incomplete, finishing a book for the sake of finishing a book, no matter how freaking exciting it is, it's got this sting in the tail of it's just a slog, you know. Unless there are some people I know, you know, Noel Whittaker is a great example to me in Queensland. He's like a financial writer, but Noel just loves writing. But I don't think he thinks about writing a book. I think he just writes, and eventually there's enough stuff that he just puts it all together and goes, there you go, there's a book, you know. But it's a challenge. So even just finishing things, when we talk about doing the things you don't like doing, for those of you who are avoid complete, you might even just want to think about, just getting stuff finished when there's nothing exciting about it. I've just got to get it done. Like how can I do that? You know, it's a great example though, the book, and it's, you know, great for you that you finally got it done, Catherine. Well done.
And I've learned, Paul, that the only way I can get something like that done is to create excitement around the finishing. so I had done about 40% of it on a trip to Bali. Good excuse to do the book. And then I did another 40% house sitting for a friend. I discovered I had to get away from my regular environment. So a coach I was talking to said, okay, well, if that works for you, where would you like to go to finish this thing? And I went, oh, okay, that'd be fun. I'll have 5 days at a B&B somewhere. And I went down to northern New South Wales. I live on the Gold Coast. So I went to northern New South Wales, Alstonville, and got a B&B for 5 days. And that was it. That was the limit. And it was going to be finished on the Wednesday night so I could play on the Thursday. But unfortunately, the hosts invited me in for a drink or 2 or 3, and I didn't do any work. So I had to work on the Thursday, and I sat up until it was finished. And it was like the deadline game is the fun game for an improviser.
Yeah.
And so that was it for me, is I need to create the deadlines, the games, the I bet you can't. And the beat the odds thing is that beat the completer out of me. And so I by no means have it mastered, but I just noticed today I'm feeling a little down because I haven't got any deadlines. I haven't got any urgencies. I've just got, it's
exactly
an okay.
Right. And when you are such a strong improviser, that need is probably not going to come, or if you think about life dishing up excitement to you, there will be times when it dishes up naturally. If you had some big function to go to, or for example, if today was your book launch, you know, it probably would be really exciting. So that would be easy to say, well, I'm a 9 or a 10. But when it's not the case each and every day, then the self-awareness and knowing your ID, and we're about to get into it now, is how can I intentionally provoke that? How can I inject what it is I need? And so with that, I'm going to transition to the topic for today, which is about, you know, doing the things you don't like doing. And if I show you the slide here, hopefully we'll go. This slide is the tool that I would really commend to you printing off and having either by your side, or for those of you who are more into ID, you know, and you're learning to really speak the language, memorize this, get to know these needs. There's not that many of them for each drive. And at the end of the day, you're not all 8 directions. You're only probably, you know, 4 of these, let's say. And you can hone in on, you might want to build a little acronym, or there might be some here that stand out to you more than others. But if you just have this by your side, as it were, print it out or put it on your phone, so you can sort of say, okay, which of these needs, if I'm a strong improviser, you know, which of these things are missing for me? And if I plug it in, it will take me from a 7 to a 10, you know, whatever it might be. You see there the piece around getting passionate and excited about something, you know, that's huge. But so is personal growth. So is this sense of challenge, like when someone dares you that it can't be done, you know. Any type of brainstorming of new exciting possibilities gets you going. So you can look at these and think, okay, do I have these? How does this fit into writing a book? You know, and so it is for each of the different drives. So just as a tool, I think a lot of people don't realize that the simplicity of doing the things you don't like to do lies in meeting your ID needs. Your ID isn't just your preferred way of operating or something that's nice to have. It's your code. It's like your personal success code. And when you operate that way, you're at your best. So it's your needs. These are the needs that you have to fulfill in order to then, you know, be on that green center line and in stride. But what I wanted to do was break it down to something even more simple for you. And this little tool I'm going to show you next is like a derivative of this matrix. And when I talk to people who have said, you know, I've been procrastinating for years and I finally nailed it, I finally got to do it, what was that sort of acupuncture point? And that's what I want to show you on this next slide. And I'm not saying it's right or complete. I'm really putting it up as a provocative discussion piece for us to go through today. And when you think about what it is that you're struggling to do, we'll use this tool and we'll refine it as necessary. So by the end of today, you've got this page that's up now and the next page is a little toolkit that you can use to always address the things you don't like to do. So this is just a couple of items for each drive that when you finally, you know, sort of go, yeah, this is what made me do it and how it played out for me. These are the things that I would say come up quite often for people. And I'll just quickly work through them, and then we'll have time then to talk about your examples and how they maybe fit and what else might be needed that's perhaps not on here. It might just be the languaging too. Sometimes it's just semantics. But for those of you who are verifiers, anytime there's a deep purpose that is really significant to you, that sort of aligns like to your, you know, something deeper and really meaningful, that engages you. When it feels meaningless, that's when you will flick out. If you're an avoid verifier, you know, if there's something that doesn't align to your gut, it's going to be really hard to engage. So if you've got a different gut feel on it, like go with your gut, and always collaborate. You know, the best answers happen when you reach out to other people. You know, there's so many authenticators that say, you know, the minute I said it, I had to do it then. Like I had to make it real. And that's what that drive is all about. So you can be thinking that you're going to, like, I can be thinking I'd like to have a book. The minute I say and tell people I'm going to write a book, well, now I've got to make that real, you know. The identity piece is interesting because if you've got voices in your head that are saying you'll never be such and such, you'll never be thin, you'll never be wealthy, you'll never be good at the piano, whatever it might be that is a voice in your head, then you're going to make that real. So the identity piece is addressing the conversations you're having inside yourself, if they're incongruent with what it is that you want to be on the outside. And that can be quite deep and profound. But if that's what's going on for you, then that's why some of those things haven't been playing out before. The avoid authenticate, that's all about leverage. So if you're cleaning the house, that might be pretty boring. But if you can do several things at the same time, so there's multiple benefits in it, that now becomes something that's more engaging for the avoid verifiers. And they're also very driven by how people see them, or their own feelings. I know for me, if I'm going to the gym, if I think about going to the gym and working out, I can be really demotivated. But if instead I think about how I'm going to feel on the other end of it and how I'm going to feel awesome through the rest of the day and focus on that instead, I have no trouble getting motivated to go to the gym. Okay, so you can see how this works. And obviously with the completers, you just start. You know, a lot of times they put things off because they think they haven't got time to finish it. All the pieces aren't there. But if you get something started, then you have to finish it. You know, once you get into it, it's more likely to keep going with it. And when you think about legacy and how things will be longer term, that's way more motivating for you than the short term ticking the box. Even though ticking the box is fulfilling, if you want looking for deeper motivation to dig deeper to do the things that you might be putting off, that might help you. For the avoid completes, it's when there's no other option. You know, they often say things like, I need to know the non-negotiables. Because if I know the rules and what I call the electric fences, you know, I can do anything within the electric fence, but I need to know what the boundaries are. So removing all the options, so there's no other. And what's ironic is it's the avoid completes that say, I like options. Yeah, I know you like them. But when you're trying to do the things you don't like to do, often what you need is no freaking option. You've just got to get this done. And sometimes they might use the word to saying, well, it was a deadline, but it wasn't so much the deadline. It was that the deadline gave them no other option, you know. And then, of course, like writing the book, chunk it up. Don't think of it as a book. Think of it as a page or, you know, an index or one thing. So many of us have ended up spending hours writing an email that we thought would only take 5 minutes. And whatever we thought it was only going to be a quick thing, you can get it done. You heard Catherine say before, you know, she's looking for what's going to be fun today. Make something fun. The most boring things can still be done in a fun way. You just got to often think about them. They don't always happen automatically. And get passionate, get excited, get your energy up. Whatever that might even be, going for a walk or talking to someone that makes you laugh and gets you excited. But coming from a place of high energy is where you need to be to get anything done. So make it fun and get excited and get passionate. There's a lot of people actually that talk about finding their passion, but so often it's not finding this elusive, like, holy grail of, oh, that's my passion over here. It's actually an inside thing. It's about deciding to show up passionately. And then it's always interesting to me how many people that live passionately find their passions. And then the avoid improvisers, so often they ended up doing something they didn't like doing when the risk of not doing it became greater than the risk of doing it. And then the other thing that's so true is because you're focused on the risk, it's all the contemplation that makes you procrastinate. But if you just start, you look back at the things you've done that you were nervous about initially, and then you got into it, whether it was a job interview, whether it was giving a speech, whatever it might be. Once you get into it, you actually forget about the nerves. You just focused on what you're doing, the task that you're involved with. And you not only do a really good job of it, you actually quite enjoy it, but you almost don't want to admit that to yourself because you don't want to sort of sell yourself on the fact that I might actually enjoy public speaking, or I might actually enjoy working under this pressure. But the truth is, once you get started and get past all the contemplation, you do enjoy it, and you actually do really well at it. So these are just some quick tips to get us started on the conversation. We've got another 30 minutes now to work through some of your examples, and we'll build out on this. I mean, it might, for some of you, might already be providing some answers, but there might be some other things we need to adjust or add in here to help you have a tool that allows you to not be, sidetracked anymore by things you procrastinate on or just don't enjoy doing. Who'd like to start? Who's got something on their mind that they particularly like to share and maybe get some help with, or maybe you've seen something here already? Jose.
I'm not really big on paperwork. I hate paperwork. I don't like paperwork. And so what I've found is I tend to procrastinate doing the paperwork. And yet, when I finally get started, I find that it wasn't actually that bad, and it's quite fun, and I enjoy it. And so what I've decided to do, and this is before doing ID. My go-to way of getting the paperwork done was to go, well, if I don't get it done, it's going to be worse. So this is all resonating with the strategies that I've put in place to be able to do the things I don't like to do. And for me, it was always I've got to write that business case. And so I put it off, and then finally, when I get into it, never took that long. It was really easy to do. And I always thought back, well, what was the big deal? Why did I procrastinate? And so that realizing that was the pattern, then I've gone, all right, well, in the future, don't worry about it so much. Just start. It'll get done real quick. You'll be happy because then it'll be out of the way. And that's, as a consequence, oddly, because then this is the new language, in stride with that, it actually became easier for me to ask somebody else to get that paperwork done for me. Someone who likes doing that sort of thing, someone who gets off on it, and they gravitate towards me because I'm in stride. They go, oh, is there anything I can do? Yeah, you could help me with this. Oh, that'd be great. Awesome. Boom. And then I don't have to do it anymore.
Thank you. It's good that you found it. And it's just another example of, so much of it is all the conversations we're telling ourselves beforehand. And once we get into it, it's often different to what we were expecting. So good for you. I'm glad you found a way through it. Judy.
Paul, it's Gail.
One sec, Gail. We just got Judy.
Oh,
she was on.
Sorry. My
Go,
mistake.
Judy.
Okay. Well, in reference to writing a book, I have been working on a book for a very long time. And I had various ways of, I'm going to write 1 hour a day or all weekend or one day a week, all these various ways. And I'm not a writer, I'm a speaker. And so then I went to Dragon Naturally Speaking, and that was good. That helped me a lot. And yet I was still just talking to my document on Word. And since we've been in the COVID experience and all this with Zoom, and I'm part of the National Speakers Association, and they have an agreement with Zoom where you get the whole package of what Zoom offers, which includes two very important things: unlimited cloud storage and transcription of every recording. So I got that package. With Zoom, it's about $2,300 to $2,600 a year, but with NSA, it's $360. And what I found is this is the perfect system for me, because the things I didn't like doing, which was writing my book, even though I wanted to get it done, was because the system just didn't work for me. It just didn't inspire me. And so now when I'm looking at myself on video, and now I record every single thing, every client call, everything, because I never know when something that I'd want to capture comes out of my mouth.
Right.
And now I have the transcription. And so I have a plan, which is so important to me as a completer. I've got to have a plan. So now I have a way to copy and paste the things that I've said into my outline. I have an editor in place and I have a layout person in place. So the system, developing the system that works for me, has been something that's helped me in a number of different situations to be able to do the things I don't like to do.
That's really good. Thank you, Judy. I mean, I'm sitting here listening to you thinking, well, I can see why that works for you as a completer. For those of us who are avoid complete, the number of systems we built to do exactly that, and then we even forget we've got the system in the first place, you know, is crazy. But I'm glad that it's working for you. And I can see in the chat, there's a number of people contributing to what Judy's sharing there with examples of other tools like that. So if you relate to what Judy's saying and you feel like you'd like some help with, you know, building a system like that, there's some really great suggestions in the chat that could be helpful to you as well. Thanks, Judy. Gail, you're going to share something.
Funnily enough, mine is so similar to Judy's, and yet you would think with our ideas it's not. For the last 10 years, I've been writing a column for our local paper. I have to do something every 2 weeks, and it had got to the stage for me of becoming a chore. I wasn't enjoying it anymore. It took an hour, and I was always thinking there's something better, or 2 or 3, there's something better I can do with this hour. And then I suddenly decided to start dictating it into OneNote, because OneNote transcribes as you're talking. And although it's a bit dodgy sometimes, it's pretty close. And then it enables me to edit it. And so now it takes me half an hour. So I've gained half an hour, yay. And I've got a whole new lease of life, because now it's fun. I can talk to OneNote and it doesn't tell me I'm silly. And I'm also told by others that they use it in their accounting practices for staff training. So one of the things I have to be so careful with is to make sure everything I say is legally correct and agrees with the law. And I just find it such a breeze now. Whereas 6 months ago, I was thinking, I'm going to have to give this up. But it's such a good marketing tool for me. I didn't want to. So it just shows sometimes it isn't COVID that you need. You know, for me, I needed a new lease of life, and I'm really loving it now and enjoying every second of every article I speak rather than write.
That's really cool, Gar, because it speaks to the heart of ID in that it's not what you're doing, it's the motivation behind what you're doing. Because you're, for all intents and purposes, doing a very similar thing to Judy, who let's just call it, has the opposite ID to you. But whereas she's focused on the value coming from it being a system, you're approaching it because you're looking at it through the lens of interaction and speed and positivity, and it's something new and exciting, you know, that accelerates what you're previously doing. So you're doing the same thing, but from a different perspective or different motivation, allows you both to be successful doing it. And that's what got me into ID in the first place, because I saw people able to do, you know, whether it was selling or organizing or using a system, I'd see different types of people doing it. So it wasn't about we can't do things. We just needed to find the right motivation that mapped to us. And what you just shared there was a great example of that. Thank you. Okay, somebody else. Someone got something they may be challenged by right now.
Yeah, I'm having a bit of a hard time at the moment. Paul, if it's all right to share.
Love it. Thanks, Lisa.
So I'm actually on holidays from work. I took a week off, and initially it was to travel to spend time with family, but we ended up changing our travel plans. So initially I was like, okay, this is going to be really exciting because I've got heaps of these incomplete tasks and things coming up in the next week that I'm going to be able to tick off. And I've been trying really hard to write myself a list, but I just found that because it was 5 days or a little bit longer, and I had lots of things that I potentially could have gotten done, but I struggle with focus, and I struggle with knowing what's the thing that I'm going to pick first, or how am I going to structure my time to make sure that I get it all done. But also because I have a very full life and do a lot of my work is quite intense in terms of the thinking that I have to do. And so I always like to give myself, when I'm on holidays, time where I don't have to do anything, or I reduce the stress level. But now I've gotten to nearly the end of my holiday, and I'm started to get disappointed with myself that I haven't really done a lot of the things that I thought I was going to do. Even though I wrote a list, and even though I started ticking them off, my focus has just been drawn all over the place, and I'm starting to feel like, oh, maybe I've wasted my break, and I'm going to get to the end of it, and I'm going to be back at work on Monday, and I won't have felt like I've had that holiday that I thought in my head I was going to have.
That's a horrible feeling, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I don't know, because I mean, I know I've done stuff, and I know that I've ticked some things off because I had a list, but at the same time, I'm just I'm looking around at all the things that I haven't gotten done yet, and I'm going, oh, I'm going to run out of time.
Yeah, but it's maybe I misinterpreted you, but I thought it's nothing worse when you have a holiday you're really looking forward to, and particularly with your idea, you have all this energy about it. If you then feel like you've wasted it, or haven't got to do some of those things, and maybe I misheard you, but where you then feel like you've had this beautiful opportunity that didn't play out, I was feeling for you there, but maybe I misheard you.
Well, see, this is the thing. I think got two conflicting objectives, and that's probably why I'm feeling out of stride. So part of me is trying to actually slow down and get away from the being busy, and try and get some focus into what I do, because I find that I'm running around like this headless chalk, and so therefore that in itself is an achievement that I haven't been able to do, is to have that focus. I think that's the main thing that I'm really feeling is lacking, and I know that me not being focused is who I am, but at the same time I know that to be able to give back to the other people around me, they're looking for that focus from me, and so that's grating on me that I haven't been able to do that for them.
I get it. Is anyone sitting there listening to Lisa thinking, I relate, and here's how I've handled that, or is in the same category? I don't want to be the only person as a voice here if someone else has got something they'd particularly like to share with Lisa.
Yes, Paul, it's Gail. I find that if I start the week with a whole list of things to do, none of them ever happen. Whereas if I start the day with a couple of things to do that I do, and then I do the next day with a few more, and I notice Lisa and I have a couple of drives in common, although I'm not an authenticator, I just find that works really well for me. So I've learned, don't do a long list. A long list is death to you. Just do little short things and you can achieve those. And then you can't possibly not do it. Yes, there's always things I could do, true, but I just make it minimal and acceptable, and then everything falls into place.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, I think that's actually really good to do, Gail. I think I might look at doing that for the next couple of days. Just reduce the list and make it a daily one and start a new one rather than have a gigantic list for the whole week's worth. Just do a to-do list with, you know, 2 or 3 things on it, and then knock it off at the beginning of the day, and then have some time to relax a little bit more. That's, I think, where I can get that balance maybe, yeah.
When I think about each ID, Lisa, and I think of what's a word that I'd use to describe that ID, or what's a metaphor for that ID, and so on. Yours is almost the ultimate reactive drive, you know. And so the idea of having a list, like, and particularly a long list, it's just like sucks the life out of you, really, you know. And yet I can see why you'd have one, because there's all these things you think you haven't finished, or they're the to-dos, but they're probably more the obligations. And again, obligations aren't really what excite someone who's a strong improviser, you know. So just to Gail's point, if you just got a couple of things that you regard as essential, the other things will probably get done, but they'll get done because they needed to be done, or they're at the right time, or something like that, not because they were on the list. And so I think Gail's insight and strategy is, you know, quite bang on, actually, you know, is to not, because it also then allows you not to be too hard on yourself around all the things you didn't get done. You actually get a hell of a lot done, but they're not always the things you expected to get done. They're, you know, they're just what you're reacting to as the day dishes up things to you. You're incredibly responsive, and, you know, you love that about the day. You love that it's adventurous, and the fact that you didn't know how it was going to play out is what excites you, you know. Holiday or not holiday.
There's another one too, Lisa, and anyone else with this drive set. Sometimes the other people involved.
Hey, Greg, you've gone really quiet, Greg. Can you either, is your microphone moved or something?
I don't know.
Okay. I don't know what's happened. It went really quiet. Now it's on mute. Okay, you move on. Okay. Okay, anyone else? So there are a couple of things you shared, Lisa, without, you know, that I just thought might be also good to call out. Really switch, you know, how to do the things we don't like to do. One of the, I know a lot of people struggle to switch off on holidays, you know, and they've been chastised by spouses and children and friends because they're like, can you give that phone a break? Can you, you know, can you be present? Like, can you really be here? You know, and they've struggled holiday after holiday, and sometimes it's just weekend after weekend, with how to stop and be really present. Now we don't, that could probably be a whole webinar on its own, you know, but I just call that out as something that as you shared what you were sharing, I thought, oh, wow, there's a lot of things around this that many people could really relate to. Susan, were you going to share something?
Oh, yeah, I guess I was just adding it in the chat box there is I'm sensing it like quite a big amount, a lot of pressure to get all of this done. And sometimes I find when I've got that internal pressure going on, if I just go and give myself a spoil for half a day, or give myself a treat, or go for a walk, and that really helps, because I'm giving myself something, then that helps me to refocus, and then I come back and get a whole lot more done. So I think, because you didn't have your holiday planned as you wished, I think, yeah, take a day off and actually have a holiday and come back and refocus again might be useful.
Thanks, Susan. Thank you. Okay, does someone have something else on their mind they'd like to share? Glenn, sorry.
Hi. Yeah, I've got a few things at the moment. I think it's mainly around prioritization. So I'm an exec coach. I've got a female leaders program that I'm second time launching at the end of April. Also doing some consulting work for a client that's got a deadline at the end of April. Also, for some bizarre reason, the timing of the universe has worked out this way. I'm taking on the Australian Institute of Company Directors program, which is in second week of May, and I got the paperwork last week which says that's 80 hours of pre-work. and I'm running my own consulting business as well as consulting for another client. So I've probably got about 4 really big competing priorities. The one, I guess, that my heart space is all around is the Female Leaders Program, wanting to make sure that I get enough time to do the business development to get women into that intake. But it's also the one thing I avoid doing because business development is not my joy area. So I find myself giving attention to the stuff that I can control, which is like, let me spend an hour doing my prep for AICD, let me focus on the consulting clients deliverable, or let me focus on the small things that I can control that make me feel good about just achieving something. Yet I've got this really big looming deadline that says, well, if I don't start marketing it or getting my ass in gear around doing stuff on socials, then I'll get to a week before the program and I may not have anyone in for this second intake that I'm doing. So I don't know whether I'm deliberately avoiding to put myself under pressure, because I know I do work well with deadlines, but it's also, there's a lot of cognitive load going on at the moment, and I'm just wondering how best with my ID style to either do the thing I don't like doing, or just to better prioritize with the number of competing priorities that I've got, which are all high stakes, really.
Yeah. Well, and you know, even the fact you're taking them on as you are sort of layering them into the conversation, I'm just thinking more pressure, more deadline. Like, you're going to have a blast here coming up where you've just got to like pull rabbits out of hats from every direction. You probably, with the intensity of your improvised drive, you're probably going to absolutely nail it. You know, but it's almost got to get to a point where it feels so frigging impossible. And like, why do I do this to myself? Because the drive to improvise is about pulling rabbits out of hats. And if it was also doable, then it's not challenging and fulfilling enough for you, you know. So it's got to get to this point where it's like impossible or seemingly impossible, and it's going to evolve like a miracle. Sorry?
It feels seemingly impossible, and I'm just wondering, have I pushed myself too far this time?
Yeah. Well, firstly, that is you, you know. I mean, that will be the story of your life, and in that is going to come your creativity, the innovation, and the miraculous part of, you know, how the hell you get it done. And you will, but I don't know how that's going to be, neither do you yet, or else you wouldn't be, you know, engaging that way. I think you raise an interesting point about prioritization, which is how do avoid verify people, because prioritization comes very naturally to the verifiers who rank things in order, who put their list together and can see this is number 1, number 2. It's so instinctive to a verifier. You don't even realize that you are prioritizing, you know, it's just automatically ranked. How for those of you who are maybe somewhat similar in terms of avoid verify, at least to Glyn, you know, is that an ongoing struggle for you, or have you found a way to prioritize that, maybe a tool even that you use that could be helpful to someone like Glyn? Catherine, you're on. There you go.
Yeah. So my comment on that, you know, having done 100,000 time management classes, etc., my comment is that I know what I should do if I was a good girl, as against being an improviser. And of course, prioritizing and adding the weight and doing the careful mapping out. I do a lot of that. And then I look at it and go, I can't be bothered with any of that. What do I feel like doing? And so what seems to be working in this stage of my life is this joy for giving myself permission all over again to do what I do know works, which is exactly the having fun, getting the juices up, stopping and being present. Somebody said a little while ago, stopping and being present. Okay, here are the projects that I have in front of me at the moment. Which laneway do I want to go down this morning? What creative juices are building up inside me? Oh, okay. I'm actually quite curious about that GAICD course. I think I'll spend 2 or 3 hours on that. Or, oh, I'm so passionately concerned with the female leaders course, which sounds fabulous. And I'm going to just put 2 or 3 hours into that. Where's my list of things that need doing? I'll grab 3 or 4 things out of that and do that this morning. So it's that mix of, if I've done the prioritizing and the planning, then at least I've got that as a tool to look at, but I can't run my life by it. I have to have it there as a tool, but run my life by my gut, my heart, and the mojo, the juju that drives me.
That sounds great. Yeah, I like that. I think what resonates there is just that the following the fun and what feels good. I think the nervousness is that gut relies a lot on trust. So sometimes you just think, what if I do bugger this up? If I've got this desire for, high pressure, and actually what if this is a one time I don't pull the rabbit out the hat and I completely mess up all of the things that are highly critical, high pressure. So yeah, it's an interesting.
In my experience, that will never happen, Glenn. And even if it does, if it ever did, you would be sufficiently creative and poised and polished to just ride it through, and everyone would think it was meant to be that way.
I like it. I like it. Thank you.
Thanks, Glenn. Great, sharing, and thanks, Catherine, for your insights there too. We've got time for maybe one, possibly 2 others, if someone's got something on their mind they'd like to share and get some insight from the group on.
Hi, Paul. Just thinking of what Glenn was saying, and I don't know if this worked for the improvisers, but how about creating a fake deadline? Because I do that to my husband. He doesn't know, but I give him a fake deadline for something that's going to work for my schedule. And that gets him excited and he does it. So with what you were saying, Glenn, like you need people to do this course and you're afraid of getting a week earlier and not having enough people, maybe if you have a fake deadline of, okay, this is the latest I can contact people, and that's a few weeks ahead of the program, that could work. But yeah, I'm not sure.
I love that, Amanda. I love that. My business partner in my training company used to ask me to author a program or customize a program, and she would give me a deadline. And she would go out of her mind with terror because I would always get it to her the night before it was due. And she couldn't live with that. So I asked her to give me what I called a printer's deadline, where I used to tell printers that I needed things a week before I really needed them because they would always push the envelope. And so Janelle learned to tell me she needed it a week before she really did. And I knew she was doing that. It didn't matter. I still had a deadline and I worked.
Exactly right. That's exactly right. I mean, it sounds sort of false, but the improviser doesn't care. They just want the excitement.
That's it.
That's good. Thanks, Amanda. And I'm glad it works for you with your husband. As he would be too, because he gets stuff done and he just wants it done. And whatever tools get used to make him do it, that's like, he doesn't really care. He just wants to feel like he's achieved something.
Yeah, exactly. It works well for him and it works for me because I know it's within my schedule and I need plenty of time to, whatever he gives to me, I still need to read or whatever it is, right, and then work within an actual deadline. So yeah, it works really well in life and business. Yeah.
And that's, a lot of people say things like, if I've got an idea that's opposite to someone else, I mean, does that mean for us to work together or live together? In your case, we've got to compromise, and it's not really compromising. It's finding the strategy, and there are strategies that work for you and the same strategy works for him. So in your case, you use a deadline, but yours is like with wiggle room. So it's really got to be done by Friday. You might use Wednesday, so it doesn't feel last minute to you, but he gets the deadline, which is what he needed to, get creative, and both of you are happy. So, and both of you wouldn't feel like there's been a compromise. You're just meeting each other's needs. It takes a bit of thinking and sometimes collaboration to figure out what those strategies are. But people who are really different can work and live together really harmoniously if they understand each other's needs and meet them the way you're doing with your husband there. Because you guys, you can't get much more opposite than you and your husband, right? When it comes to IDs.
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word harmoniously all the time, but we try most of the times.
Yeah. Good on you. All right. Anybody else?
Paul, I've got one. I actually find it, I'm at 4538, and I find a real struggle in terms of following up. It's not so much the following up, but it's that need that I've got to move on to something else. And I'm really struggling to keep myself staying centered to get things done, or to look back and say, what else haven't I done? Do you know what I mean? So it's dealing with that energy of wanting to move on to the next thing. And I'm just wondering if there's anyone who can help out with that at all. The energy piece. No.
Great question.
I treat each one as a new thing, Susan.
Yeah.
So if I've got the follow-up isn't a follow-up, it's a new thing to do, and it's new and exciting. And therefore, I don't get bogged in the thing, which is where I was with my articles, because they were routine and the same, even though they were a different topic each time. And so I just find something that makes it a new thing to do, and then it loses that sureness, and also it's exciting because I've got something new to do.
Yeah, so but with the actual energy piece of wanting to, like, I'd go for a run rather than sit down and follow up. Do you, it's the energy bit that, do you understand what I mean? Or
is it following up with a particular, is it about following up with people or a particular task?
Yeah, following up with people or tasks, sort of kind of admin things, yeah.
I relate to that because I really don't enjoy the follow-up, but what I find, what pushes me out of that is because I have high standards of expectations of what I'm expecting from others in their response time and feedback time. I set myself my own pressure of going, well, if I want to be perceived a certain way, that requires a certain set of behaviors. So I guess it's more in the morning asking myself, who do I want to be today? And then modeling that. And if it's the follow-up that I'm finding the energy is off, where I draw my energy, because I hate admin too, and I find I really struggle with email responses and getting back to people and stuff. But then I have to go, well, who do I want to be seen as? And it's the, well, I want to be high energy, I want to know that people can trust me, and part of that trust building has to be being responsive in a time, even if it's just to acknowledge someone's email and say, hey, I just want to acknowledge it, you'll expect to hear back to me by this point, when I've got the energy to actually deal with it and respond to it. So I find that's the method that I use to energize myself. I don't know if that may or may not work for you.
Yeah, it's not, I understand. Thank you for that. It's more the energy of wanting to move on, trying to contain it. I guess as I'm speaking, I'm hearing that I maybe just need to probably go for the run or the walk, but re-steer the energy back to get the task done. Does that make sense? It's more the energy piece. I know the kind of logic, but it's dealing with the energy.
If you think of it as doing the next new thing, but as part of the follow-up, does that harness your energy, or is that still not enough?
It's more trying to hold myself back. It's like holding back a wild horse, but knowing that I've got to do the tasks. It's just trying to, I guess it's redirecting the energy. Maybe if I think about a strategy around redirecting the energy to do that, it's like pulling the horse back into the barn rather than let the horse run. So,
can you do both? Can you do both? Can you, pursue the newness while doing the follow-up with the others? Like go for the walk and talk to people while you're walking, for example, do the follow-up while you're walking, or, do the new thing and pull them into it. Is it possible to think about how you do both?
Or even mind shift, so that the follow-up is actually not called follow-up. It's actually, because you hate doing follow-up, it's doing what you used to call follow-up is now called
Follow
new
forward.
exciting adventure. It's a weird thing that I've never done before. This crazy thing that other people apparently do all the time and is good for business. Gosh, I wonder what that would be like. And it's not a must do. It's because nothing's a must do except breathing. It's like, oh, I wonder if I could create a whole new system around that would enliven not only me, but the people I'm following up with.
Actually, I think it's just landed for me. I think what it is, it's the fact that the follow-up is going back, whereas I want to move forward. So if I think of follow forward rather than follow up or follow back, does that make sense? Then I feel like I'm still using the energy to go forward with it. Yeah,
Perfect.
that's it. Thank you.
It's so true. That word back has a negative connotation for improvisers.
Yeah.
When people say, I'm back from holidays, it feels like they've come backwards as opposed to going forward, you know. So just changing the vernacular so it's got forward focus energy will have a massive impact. Yeah, well done, Susan. Good insight.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Okay.
Hey guys, we're at the top of the hour. Out of respect for everybody, we're going to set you free and let you get on with your day. This has been a great sharing. Thank you for contributing. I'll send these slides out with the recording link later today so that you've got them, and print them off. And you know, if when you're back on our next webinar, you've got some examples of where it's worked, we'd all love to hear, because when you make it practical, the nuances around that, like what we're just sharing with Susan around, even just the word back, that makes a difference, you know, and it sets others free as well. So thanks for being here today. Thanks for your comments, Mark. I don't, you didn't say a lot verbally, but I appreciate you being on the call, and I can see how much some of you guys are learning. Jose, you know, I'm watching you learn all the time. Some of the things I can see you smiling and nodding when people are saying things. And I'm like, you're right on, you know, so it's great to see you coming along and really learning that as well. Well done, guys. Appreciate all the sharing. Have a great day, and hopefully we'll see you again next week. All the best.
Ian, is my microphone working now?
Yes, but you're still a bit faint.
Okay, because I've got a 2-hour workshop coming up.